Muted.
All right, so I want to welcome everyone and let you know that this is the pre-K program review process for those counties who will be reviewed during the 2016-2017 school year. There were a couple of attachments included in the registration for the webinar that you should have been able to access. The first is the program review process. It's a packet that includes all the steps that we're going to cover today. And then the other attachment is the pre-K program review memorandum and review schedule. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that too. I just had a pop-up on the screen. Sorry about that. So let's just go ahead and dive in, talk about the program review process. And what you'll find is that what we're going to talk about today is included in the guide, in the process book, and on page 5 and 6, it's a 10-step process. So the program review, we've basically broken it down into 10 steps, and what we're going to do is just spend the next half hour talking about the nuts and bolts of those 10 steps, and to help you prepare for your program review. Anytime, I just want to point out right off the bat that anytime your team is, getting ready for the program review and you have some questions, please don't hesitate to contact one of the steering team members. Today with me, and I'm Janet Bach-Hager, I wanted to let you know that Rhonda's with me, and my colleagues Ginger, Patty Varner, who is our new State Head Start Collaboration Director, and Tricia Haynes are out in the field, and so they're joining us through the webinar also. So as I kind of just go through this, if they have comments too, please feel free to put those in the chat box, ladies, and I appreciate you joining too. I just want to talk first of all about the intent. The Universal Pre-K Program Review has two main purposes. One is to give the steering team a glimpse of individual programs by coming out and working with your team, and then that way we can provide individualized feedback. We also, whenever we see wonderful things happening, that's an opportunity, with your permission of course, to share with the rest of the state about good practices in developing pre-K programs, and we oftentimes do that. Just a couple of days ago, I shared a bus driver training PowerPoint that we had reviewed from one county with another county who was asking about some further information. And we knew of a county that was doing a really good job with that, and so we shared that with other folks. That's just an example of one of the things that we do with materials and information that we get from the pre-K program reviews. The other objective in completing the pre-K program reviews is to give you a perspective on your program from someone else. And we encourage you to take the information that you get through this process and implement it into your continuous quality improvement process as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. But that's the intent. Also, the program reviews are required by Policy 2525. And what we do is we look at 4 key areas, and we'll talk about those 4 key areas as we go through this process too. But I want to give you just a glimpse of what a pre-K program review, the key things that it includes. One is a desktop review, and that will happen before we ever come out to see you. Another thing that will happen before we come to see you is the completion of a parent survey. It's an online parent survey that we ask you to to disseminate the web address to all your families and encourage them to complete that. We also encourage you to have different ways in which families can complete it, because it's an actual opportunity for families to give feedback straight to the program review team. And I'll show you more about that in a few minutes too. We do pre-K site visits, so we go into 20% of every county's classrooms. And then we conduct a core team interview. And so those are the major events of the pre-K program review, and we're going to break those down as we go through this process today. All right, so let's go through the 10 steps, and I'm just going to include all the pieces that we do in these 10 key steps. And so feel free to ask questions, raise your hand, type in the chat box if you do have questions about any as we go through this process. You don't have to hold your questions till the end, and you can if you want, though. So the first step is the program review team is determined. At our next Universal Pre-K Steering Team meeting, we will sit down with the schedule and we will determine who's available to go out on all of the program reviews. So as of today, we don't have the review team members who will come out to see you. We'll have those, and we'll have that in the next month. So once we do that, then each county begins desktop review preparation. Now, all pre-K coordinators should have received an email from me this morning that said that I shared a file with you on OneDrive. So basically, this file is where you will upload your files, all of your policies and procedures. And so I want to just take a little bit of time to go through that. So each County Collaborative Early Childhood Core Team will complete electronic submission of program pre-K policies and procedures according to the key areas. And let me just real quickly pull up the website to show you what you should have received. Let me pull that over. So I'm just going to use Cabell County's. So the pre-K coordinator, Joan Adkins, should have received access to a file, and inside that file are 4 key areas. And this is how we organize, we ask you to organize your pre-K program review. Now, if you did not have access to the process guidance document, you can upload it on our Office of Early Learning website by going to Universal Pre-K, go to the Office of Early Learning, go to the Universal Pre-K tab, scroll down to Program Assessment and Improvement. When you click on that, you should see the very first item in the list is the Pre-K program review process. This is, if you actually clicked on this, you would hear last year's review webinar. We'll replace that with this review process webinar, but the PDF is actually attached also. So when you pull it up, you also had access to this when you register for the webinar. So this, I just want to share this graphic with you because this is how we've organized the files. And actually they're a little bit out of order because the first file is Universal Pre-K Access. So all of your documentation around eligibility and enrollment will be captured here in the file. And so when you go into Universal Pre-K Access, you can upload files in here. As you can see right now, the file's empty. So you'll upload into that one, and you can just navigate between the folders by clicking at the top headings. And then, as you can see, the second section is the County Collaborative Early Childhood Teams. Third section is Curriculum Instruction and Child Assessment. And then finally, the fourth section is Program Assessment and Continuous Quality Improvement. And this seems a little confusing, but what I want you to do is make sure that you utilize the process guidebook to assist you, because along with the 10 steps that we include in here, we also in the process guide, we also have a checklist that you can utilize to help guide the process. So you can see under Section 1, Universal Pre-K Access, we want you to upload the application system forms and procedures. So how do families apply for pre-K? So all of your application and your forms to support that will be included in there. Also included in this will be the universal process for placement, and so on and so forth. So if you use this checklist to guide you, then you will upload the correct county documents into the correct folder. That's a 2-page document that you can print, and then your team can, as you're preparing your documents, you can upload those and use that as a guide. Just after that, beginning on page 9, is the actual checklist that the review team will use, and I think it's 9 through page 14. So you can actually see, we will actually have one document that we use as a team, and so for instance, I oftentimes last year completed review of Section 1. So you're actually seeing the form that I will complete for Section 1 as I do the review before we even get there, because on the schedule there are 2 dates. One is the deadline for electronic upload. So the first date under the review schedule is the date that you must have everything uploaded, and then the second date is the date that we're going to do our actual visit. And let me show you also where that is, in case you don't have a copy of. Actually, I don't think it's the right one. Oh, it's not the right one. Well, if you don't have a copy of the memo, please feel free to email me and I will be sure to send you a copy of that. Okay. Just, this is the memo. And so when I was referring to the dates, let me make this a little bigger for you. For instance, let's just look at the first one. Mingo County is the first county to be reviewed. All of the files have to be uploaded by November 1st, 2016, and we will be out to visit on November the 15th. So, and then you can also see the column number of classrooms observed. We will go into 5 classrooms on the day of our visit on November the 15th, and we'll talk a little bit more about that too. Okay. So the desktop review will be assigned to each of the reviewers. So if we have 3 reviewers, 1 reviewer gets to review 2 sections, and so forth and so on. We don't know the questions that we're going to ask the core team during the interview until we actually have completed the desktop audit. Sometimes if there's missing data that we need, we'll call or email before we get there. Maybe something didn't upload, or maybe some, we know you might have something and maybe it just didn't get uploaded for whatever reason. If there's something that we really feel like should be there and isn't, we'll give you a call. So you might get a call. For instance, Rhonda does most of the certification and ECAT authorizations, and so if she doesn't see those actual certificates uploaded, then she will give you a call and ask for those before we ever get there, because we want to be able to just, ask some specific questions when we do get there. But if we think there's missing documentation, we'll ask for it before we even get there. The parent survey, we ask that you send something to every parent in the pre-K program and invite them to complete the parent survey. And the web address for the parent survey is listed here. It's also in the process guidebook. And we know that many families might not have access to the web, or some families are not comfortable with completing it online. And if that's the case, we also encourage you to provide provisions to complete a paper copy. You can actually get a copy of the survey, a paper copy of the survey out of the guidebook, the process guidebook, and you can actually have parents complete that. If you have printed copies, though, you will need to designate someone to enter those into the website, because what we ultimately need is that everyone to be electronically submitted. What we do at the end is we take the results, and the survey provides an Excel spreadsheet for us to analyze, and we answer some of our questions from the pre-K program review worksheet. We actually use that to answer some of the questions under family engagement. And we will also have follow-up questions related to family engagement as we look at those surveys. You'll also get a copy of that Excel spreadsheet with all of the answers from every family. And then we also provide an aggregated report that shows trends on how families answered questions. And there's 7 simple questions. For those of you who've been through this process before, you know, it's 5 multiple choice questions and then 2 open field questions. Very quick to complete, and it doesn't take a lot of time to do, and we try to be least invasive to families, but also gather pertinent information about the program through their perspective. If you have questions about this or want the actual page emailed, I'll send you the link. We actually have some counties that do it on the years that they don't have program reviews to. So if you're ever interested in that, you can just let me know, and I can pull the data. We can set a timeline and pull the data, and you can use it annually if you'd like. Okay, step 5. We say about 2 weeks prior to the on-site visit, we will do an agenda. And when I say we, that's the pre-K coordinator from the county and myself will coordinate an agenda. I try to do it about 4 weeks out. I select the classrooms based on diversity. We want to, if you have special needs classrooms, we want to visit a sampling of special needs classrooms. We want to visit classrooms in various collaborative settings. And so we try to get a diverse picture. We're not afraid to travel in some of the classrooms that are more rural, and we really enjoy that. And I think sometimes the classroom teachers are, say, oh, people don't usually come to visit us, so we would, we like to just get a diverse picture of your classrooms. The minimum number of classrooms we're ever in is 3. So if you're a small county, if you're a county of 4 classrooms, we'll go to all 4 classrooms because it's really difficult just to not select one. We'll go to all 4. But if you're a large county like Cabell, we're going to be going into 10. And Monongalia also will go into 10 classrooms. So it's about 20% of the classrooms that we go into. And that will be included in the agenda, which classrooms that we'll be going into. I want to show you just how the agenda kind of looks. So we put the name of the observer, what classrooms they'll be visiting, and we encourage you to let classroom administrators and teaching staff know that we're coming. We don't want to surprise them. We come sometime between 8 and 11. Doesn't mean we'll be there right at 8 because the classroom observers, you know, they go to more than one site. So we hit the road and try to get in a classroom by 8, depending on how, you know, where it is in relation to where we're coming from. Typically we're in them about by 8:30, but we try to, you know, head out so that we're there around 8. And they'll be all finished by 11 o'clock because then we have to, then our core team meets to determine our final questions before our core team interview. So sometime between 8 and 11, we'll be out in the classrooms that we've designated that we'll be in. So then after that, we meet, and you won't see that on the schedule simply because it's not necessary. So we meet, and we will ask for a space for us to meet. We'll ask pre-K coordinators to designate a place where we can meet, where our team can shut the door and can discuss all the things that we've seen and prepare for the core team interview. And as you'll see on the screen, we have the core team interview is usually at 1 o'clock. We try to do that about 1 o'clock to 2:30, usually lasts right around an hour and a half. And we determine, as we develop the schedule, the location, what core team members will be there. We hope that your whole core team will be there. And when we say your core team, we don't mean the full team, we mean the core team, and I'll talk about that. But also who will be participating from the review team. Oops. So we talked about that. I get ahead of myself sometimes. Oops. The core team members should be the pre-K coordinator, the special ed rep, child care rep, and Head Start representative. So there should be up to 4 people on the interview. I know in one county we have 2 child care partners who represent the core team because there's only 2 on the team. So we would, of course, invite both child care reps to be there. But this is what the core team should look like. If you don't have a child care representative, invite your local Department of Health and Human Resource and or Child Care Resource and Referral Agency representative. Depending on their participation on a regular basis, you know, you can gauge on how comfortable they'll be with the interview because the questions are directly related to policies and procedures around Policy 2525. Okay. We talked about the site visits at length. Like I said, 20% of the classrooms is what we'll visit. I did want to point out, though, that when we do the observations in the classroom, when we conduct those observations, we use the pre-K observational walkthrough. So that's what we use. We'll do the environmental section of it, and we'll also do whatever section that's related to whatever activities are happening in the classroom at that time. So let's say we walk in during choice time in the classroom, then we'll pull the choice time page and we'll complete that page of it. All right, so once we conduct the interview, ask final questions. Before we leave, as we go through and we ask our questions section by section, and basically for those of you who haven't participated before, we do sort of a round robin. Whoever completes section 1 of the desktop audit will ask questions about section 1 for follow-up, and then so on and so forth. So the team will take turns asking questions based on the section that they completed. At the same time, what we do is make sure that we kind of give you an overview of what you've seen. Our whole goal is when we leave is that you have a sense of what will be on your finalized report. I don't like surprises. I know my teammates don't like surprises, and we don't want to provide surprises. So basically, what we discuss in our interview is also what you'll see on the report. That's not changed through this process for those of you who've done it once or twice before. And what we do is the teammates come back. You'll notice when we're in the interview, we'll be typing. We'll have our computers up because we're actually using the worksheet to take notes, and you'll actually get a copy of the completed worksheet once the report comes back to you. So my teammates and I, we come back, we clean up our notes, and that's what you'll get. So you'll actually get a copy of the completed document. Like I said, it starts on page, the cover sheet's on page 9 of the process document. You'll actually get a completed copy of this along with a summary at the end. But they complete that, and then they say, I'm finished with this. I do final edits and put all of the pieces together. And then you will get a report about 30 business days from the time that from the time we leave. The finalized report will include a summary of classroom visits, the checklist that's completed. Like I said, that begins on page 10 of the process document. And then the summary at the end will include commendations, any recommendations, which recommendations mean, hey, you're doing a good job with this, but maybe some suggestions to go along with what you're already doing. And then any required follow-up. If you have required follow-up, I'm just kind of skipping around just because it makes sense to talk about required follow-up right now. But any required follow-up documentation or clarification, we ask that you submit that. We say it's about 30 business days from the time you receive your report, but we'll give you an absolute deadline in the report. And usually immediate follow-up is something that we can't tell how you're meeting policy. So that's something that you really have to provide some kind of documentation to make the correction. And we will work with you to complete that follow-up. And that happens. We like for that to happen in a supportive way. Let me go back to this page. The finalized report, just to let you all know, when you get your finalized report, it isn't actually electronically submitted to the county superintendent, and it's CC'd to all core team members, not just those who participated, or if someone wasn't there and sent another representative. It actually won't go to the person who was in the interview, but it'll go to the actual core team members. And it will include 3 attachments. The program review report, which includes the checklist and the summary, and then it includes the parent survey report with all the aggregated charts and graphs for each question, and then the actual raw Excel spreadsheet that's generated from all the parent surveys, the individual surveys that are done. So you'll get 3 documents. We talked about that. So are there any questions? I just want to take just a minute as you're thinking about some questions that you might have to pull the to pull up OneDrive, and remind you to use the section of the process that includes the checklist. That will help you know what you need to include in each of the 4 key areas. Some folks cross-reference the checklist with the program review team checklist, so you could do that too. For those of you who are new, many of you have partners who have been through this process before, so that may be helpful. But as we conclude this, I just want to remind you that if you do have questions along the way, don't hesitate to call one of the steering team members. I did have a question. Are we uploading 2015-16 documentation? That's a really good question. What we want are your current policies and procedures. So if you've changed something from 2015-16, we want the most current documents. However, if the documents that you're using are from 2015-16 or something that you need to illustrate hasn't been generated for this current school year, then you will use 2015-16. Rhonda had a comment.
Yeah, but we do want your current teachers and teachers' assistants. We want their certificates, and also like a current list of classroom names with the teacher names. So that would be your current teachers that are hired now.
Your current classroom information. We want lesson plans, and we don't, if lesson plans and classroom schedules we want for the current school year. We do not want IEPs uploaded. Some counties have in the past uploaded IEPs to illustrate inclusive settings. What we're looking for are your county policies and procedures, not actual child files.
But we are looking for teacher certificates.
Mm-hmm. One question that we oftentimes get is documentation of meal guidance. In Policy 2525, it addresses meal environments, and so what we're looking for around meals are those procedures on how you're ensuring that staff are sitting with children, encouraging socialization, how supervision is adequate during meals, and how children are, you know, how that's an instructional part of the day. So we're looking for that kind of guidance around that one. There's always questions about that one. Another question that we oftentimes get is around child guidance under curriculum instruction and child assessment. What is your county process for child guidance, and how do you ensure developmentally appropriate child guidance across all classrooms? We're not looking for what systems individual teachers have in place, but what does your county do to ensure that your teachers have systems that meet policy are in place? No, we haven't had any other questions. However, if you think of something, you can shoot us an email. Just check real quick and make sure no one has raised their hand. And I will send out an email to everyone with a link on how to access this this webinar. I know that some folks couldn't attend today, so it will be available if you want to review it. And in the meantime, you may come up with some questions a little later or as you're preparing for the program review. We will be checking periodically just to make sure that things are getting uploaded into the files, because we use that electronic upload due date. That's when we have scheduled to go in and start reviewing files. So it's important that you meet those deadlines so that we can start the next phase of the process. And I'll work with each pre-K coordinator a couple of weeks prior to the program review to finalize the schedule. So if we don't have any other questions right now, we're going to go ahead and conclude. I just want to say happy Friday to everyone, and we look forward to working with all of you in the upcoming school year. Have a good day.